Okay, kiddos. So we are going to have to, this is a really, really, really important lesson. It's going to be perfectly okay if you have some questions about this lesson after we go through this video, but perhaps going through the video will at least give you a starting point. Part of these things that we're going to have to learn does require activating prior knowledge, like it says right there, because you did do some of these transformations in Algebra 1. So we're going to have to remember and review some things that you were supposed to learn in Algebra 1, okay? So here's the first thing. Let me click over here. First thing you need to understand is this whole concept here of what a parent function is, okay? And you'll have to give me a second to get used to using this new pen. What in the world do they mean by parent functions, okay? So I think when I talk to my students about what a parent function is, I want you to think about some car advertisements that you've seen, advertisements on the TV about cars. You're looking at this really fancy, snazzy car on television, and it has all kinds of doodads in the car, like, a plug for your auxiliary cord, power windows, moonroof, all that kind of stuff. And then at the end of the commercial, it says something like, prices starting at $18,500. Well, why do they make a statement about the prices starting at $18,500? What in the world do they mean by prices starting at $18,500? What do they mean starting? Oh, I was pressing the button. Hold on. Prices starting at $18,500. Why would they have to be starting at $18,500? Well, if you didn't understand what they mean by that, when you go to the car dealership and you say, I want to see that car that I saw in the commercial for $18,500, the guy's going to say, well, the one that you saw on the commercial is going to cost a little bit more than that, because the car that cost $18,500 is what they call their basic model. Okay, and the reason it's called their basic model is because it doesn't have a lot of those extra special things. Like, it probably doesn't have power windows. It probably doesn't have a moonroof or a sunroof. It probably doesn't have the place for you to plug in your iPad or your iPod. It doesn't have that USB port. It's just got a plain standard radio, roll-up windows, solid roof, all those kind of things. Because for all those little extras, they add on to that. Okay? Well, when they're talking about a parent function like they are right here, the parent function is your most basic stripped-down model. Okay? And there are several parent functions that you should have learned. This is just a review. Okay? So one of the parent functions, that's a terrible, terrible, terrible line. So one of the parent functions that you learned in Algebra 1 was the parent function y equals x. Okay, that's your basic linear equation. Okay, and what you learned about that is that it is a line that passes through the origin. It has a slope of 1. So it goes in that direction and it goes in that direction. And that is the most basic stripped down model of a line. I think in Algebra 1, you also studied a quadratic. Okay, the quadratic passes through the origin. It has a curve, and it looks something like that. And the equation for that one is y equals x squared. That's a parent function. That's a parent function. Okay, I also know in Algebra 2, I also know that in Algebra 1, they talked about this parent function. And a reason that I know that is because I did this just today with my Algebra 1 class. Y equals x cubed. It's a function that looks like this. It starts at the origin, It goes up in this direction. It goes down in that direction. And that is considered a parent function. One of the ones that we're looking at today, y equals the absolute value of x. It's a parent function. It's in the shape of a V. Okay? If you want to know how to make each one of these, if you don't remember how to graph, remember you can always graph them by building a table of values. If you built a table of values for y equals x, here's the x value, here's the y value, which is equal to x. So just pick any number that you want to for x. If you pick -1 and y is equal to x, then the y value is going to be -1. So the point -1, 1 is right there. Pick another x value. Pick 0. If you pick 0, you plug 0 in right there, then y is equal to 0. Okay, and there's the plot right there. Pick another point. You pick the point 2, plug in 2 for x. If you plug in 2 for x, then what does that say? Y is equal to 2. Then the point 2, 2 is on the graph. Okay, you could do the same thing for these. Plug in the same values. Here's some values. Here's x. And remember, y is x squared. So plug in -1. -1 squared is +1. -1 times -1 is +1. -1, 1. Plug in 0, you get 0. Here's the 0, 0. Plug in +1. 1 squared is 1. Okay? So forth. Okay? Do the same thing for this one. You plug in points to get that value. You plug in points over here into the absolute value equation. There's your x value. Your y value is the absolute value of x, because that's what it says right there. That's your f of x. Okay? So plug in a number. -2. The absolute value of -2 is +2. -2, +2. Okay? Plug in 0. Plug in 0. The absolute value of 0 is 0. Plug in +1. I'm just randomly selecting numbers. You plug in 1, you get +1 right there. Okay, so that's where we got these problems. Now, don't forget, you can always go over to Desmos and type in, there's the absolute value button, absolute value of x. It'll show you what it looks like. You can come over here and click on it. It'll give you y values. It'll show you what they are. Okay. There's 1, 1 over here. Click on it anywhere you want. It'll show you if you plug in -1. Okay. If you wanted to change your function, we plug in x. There's the y equals x line. Raise it to the third power. There's that graph that they gave us a while ago. 0, 0, 1, 1. Trying to get it on exactly 1. 1, 1. You plug in 2. You can't see it because it's, but if you plug in 2, because 2 times 2 times 2, that's what 2 to the third power means. Plug in 2. Good grief. So there it is. You get 8. You plug in -1. Plug in -1, you get 1. So that's plug in -2, you're going to get -8 because that's what x cubed looks like. Okay, so those are parent functions. Now, what they're going to want us to do, what it says right here, is they want us, so the f of x is what they usually call a parent function. They're going to make some changes to those. And the changes is what we're going to study, and that will take place in video number 2.